Welcome to Arcadia. Last week I shared my review of Vox Machina Season 2, link in the eye up there if you want to watch it, in which I said that many changes were made to the original livestream story, and that even though I know that many people can be upset for that deviation from the original material, it enhanced the series as a whole. We must not forget that the goal of an adaptation is not to tell the exact same story in the exact same way. Each medium has its own strengths, weaknesses, and something special that makes any story told with it unique. The goal of an adaptation is to harness that special something of each medium and use it to elevate the story and give it a new, fresh perspective. Sometimes that requires changes to the original material, but without them, the adaptation wouldn't work as well. The thing is, this fact applies to adaptations from D&D games to series, but also from series, and video games and books and movies for that matter, to D&D games. Many DMs try to convert their favorite stories and franchises to D&D campaigns, but often forget the necessary adjustments they need to do so it works as an RPG. To avoid that happening in your campaign, today I'll share a method to adapt your favorite story to D&D or any other RPG. To successfully adapt any story to a D&D campaign, the first step is understanding what makes D&D special, and what necessary adjustments we must bear in mind when making such an adaptation. For example, if you're adapting an epic fantasy story from a book to a movie, you probably shouldn't take a 10-page long scene description and show it piece by piece as if you were reading each individual word. However, you could pan out, explore motion, and add some music to highlight the emotions you want to convey. On the other hand, if adapting the same story from a movie to a book, you probably shouldn't describe the sword fights blow by blow as if faithfully translating the motions in the movie. That's boring. However, you can convey the inner monologues of each character during the fight, which a movie would have a hard time doing. In a way, these little changes that harness each medium's strengths are what actually justifies making an adaptation. If we are going to tell the exact same story in the same way, and there's nothing else the new medium can do to contribute to the original story, why would we need an adaptation? We already had the original one. So, what is special about D&D? What should we harness and explore to breathe life into a pre-existing story when told through a D&D campaign? The answer is choices. In a movie, a book, or even most video games, you are a passenger and the author is taking you in for a ride. The enjoyment is finding out where you are going and how you will get there. In D&D, you should be able to go anywhere. The fun lies in forging your own path, beating obstacles along the way, and watching your choices blossom into epic results or terrible consequences. D&D is not about what will happen next, it's about what you do to get there. This is a hard thing to adapt. After all, it negates the very structure of most other mediums, such as movies or books. Those presume a narrative that has no alternative. The book will always play out the same way. The movie will always have the same ending. Nothing you can do will affect it. And that is very contrary to the nature of D&D. So, how do you pick up a story that is told in a book or a movie and translate it to D&D while also bringing choices into the spotlight as the main feature of this way of storytelling? That is step 2 of this process. You must analyze whatever story you want to adapt, break it down into its most fundamental pieces, and find out what is the theme of the story. And note that I said theme, not plot. This distinction was a groundbreaking moment for me when I was starting out as a comic book author. One editor once asked me what was the theme of my book, and I immediately went on explaining the plot. He stopped me right there in my tracks.
No. I don't want to know what happens in your story. I want to know what it is about. Those are two very different things. You can tell a story that happens in World War I and make it about friendship, and another one that happens in a kindergarten and make it about vengeance. The theme of your story is its soul. If you don't know what it is, you don't know your story well enough yet. Come back when you do.
Finding the theme of the story you want to convert to D&D is paramount to make a successful adaptation. Since you can't adapt the whole plot because there will always be choices in D&D that makes your players go off track, you need to figure out what is the theme, the soul of that story, and make your campaign about that. You can keep the characters, the locations, the main events, everything, but the plot itself? Toss it away. Instead, reinforce the theme of that story in every single choice and decision your players will need to make. For example, the theme of Iron Man is not a narcissistic genius ends up becoming a superhero after inventing his own supersuit. That's the journey. And a D&D game might not play out that way. The theme would be something like redemption or accepting responsibility. When adapting it to a D&D campaign then, every challenge presented to a character should be framed as an opportunity for the hero to achieve redemption. With this, I don't mean that you should ditch completely the plot of your story to adapt, but blindly following that plot will eventually fail you, because there is no way to predict the course of actions the players will take. Knowing the theme of the story, however, will act like a compass, a guiding principle always showing you how you should challenge the players. In Iron Man, Tony Stark has his first reality check of how destructive his creations are in the cave where he's held hostage. After that, his life takes a 180, but what if this was a D&D campaign, and he managed to escape the terrorist attack, or was never captured? Or what if he is captured but refuses to reframe his reality? What if this event leaves such a trauma in him that he becomes a vigilante? Well, now you have a completely different story. But that is kind of the point. If you wanted to see the unaltered version of Iron Man or show it to your players, you could all just see the movie together. Playing D&D is a constant improv exercise where a what-if moment is at every corner. That is the strength of this medium. For a DM, such a divergence from the canonical plotline can be terrifying, but if you bear in mind the theme of redemption and the transformative journey Tony Stark undergoes, it will become easier to frame new challenges even when the original plot was already transgressed. Have fun with it. Ask yourself, how would the scene in the original movie play out if Tony instead had become a vigilante? How could I raise the drama in his redemption arc in that situation? You must bear in mind though that the theme of the story is ambivalent. When playing through a story with an unwritten ending, you must always be open to either outcome. A story about friendship, for example, where the bonds between characters is put to the test, can either result in success, where that friendship endures and comes out stronger than ever, or in the rejection of that friendship. A story about vengeance can either conclude with the consummation of said vengeance, or in its rejection and a search for a way to true happiness. Whatever the ending of your campaign, and regardless of the theme of the story, that will be the ending your players chose, and it should be respected, even if it deviates from the story you were trying to emulate. That's one of the core features of D&D. If you don't want to put up with it, you may want to find another game. There is a third step to this method, but it's more of a tool than a stage. You can use the plot from the original material you're basing your campaign in as a guideline, but your players' choices will inevitably throw a wrench into those plans. When that happens, knowing the theme of the story can help you frame the challenges, but it doesn't help you that much figuring out how all the NPCs will react or reframing the events and story beats that happened in the original material, but now can never happen because the story went a different way. To help with that, you should break down each important character in the original story into its fundamental ideas. Figure out what is their personality and behavior, but also their role, or in other words, their function. Are they a dark reflection of the character's darker side to tempt or oppose the players, like Obadiah Stane was a product of blind greed and more or less capitalism? Are they a tireless support and eternal ally that can help lifting up the hero in a darker moment, like Pepper? Are they a sacrificial lamb to give the hero a reason to care about defeating the villain, like... Spoilers. But if you watch Iron Man 3, you know who I'm talking about. Unlike the plot of a movie or a book, which is reliable, the actions and choices of your players are unpredictable and will inevitably deviate from the story you are adapting. When that happens, instead of railroading them back into the true plot so that you can still use all the characters and events as they were in the original material, it's better to see your NPCs as versatile chess pieces that you can move across the board. If you know them well enough, what they're supposed to do and how best to use them, just like you would with a chess piece, you won't need to follow one single strategy that will be rendered useless when the unexpected happens. Instead, you'll be able to use them reactively and reposition them in your campaign structure where it best suits you. For example, and spoiler alert on screen, imagine that in the first arc of Iron Man, Tony Stark manages to save Yinsen from the terrorist cave instead of leaving him behind. This could derail your whole campaign, but not if you understand that the function Yinsen plays in the story is the reality check Tony needed. He is the first one to point out to him the consequences of his weapons falling in the wrong hands, suggesting that his legacy would be one of death, and that he shouldn't waste the rest of his life following the same path. He's also the motive why Iron Man goes public after Tony found out that the terrorists were using his weapons to attack Yinsen's village and traveled all the way to Afghanistan to stop them. If you understand Jensen's role in the story to be the Kickstarter of Tony's conscience and to be the motive for Iron Man to appear publicly for the first time, you'll realize that you don't really need Jensen nor the events to play out the same way as they did in the movie. You only need to find a way to kickstart Tony's conscience and a reason for Iron Man to go fight the terrorists. Your job as the DM will be then to connect these dots and to improvise both the situation that leads up to these story beats and whatever plays out from there. The same logic can be applied to events and locations. If you know the role they played in the story, you will be able to reframe them and reposition them as needed. Is an event designed to challenge the character's perspective, like what happened to Tony when the terrorist used his own weapons to attack him? Is a location planted as a safe space where the characters can reflect and rebuild, like the cave where Tony was held captive? If by any reason your players never go to that location or never experience that event, that's fine. You just need to reposition them in your campaign structure or find similar elements that will perform the same role, just as if you were using a versatile chess piece. Of course, doing all of this is easier said than done, but if my journey as an author can be used as an example, when you train decomposing stories in this way, you will start understanding what makes them work. From learning what makes them work to using that knowledge to actually make them work takes time and experience, but it's a muscle that you develop over time with practice. I hope this advice was useful to you. This kind of video is basically what I do around this channel, so if you liked it, you can click the subscribe button down below. All that's gonna do is bookmark this channel. You won't even get notifications unless you click the bell too, but it will make me happy and feel like my work is touching people. If you're not ready for that kind of commitment, you can just click the like button to boost this video and help it reach more people without subscribing. The topics of this video are also somewhat related to railroading, which is a very complex topic in TTRPGs, so if you want to keep hearing me talk about this issue, I will leave some recommendations to my left. Thank you for watching, I'm the first Arcadian, and truth is, I am Iron Man.